Bella, you hit your head. I think you're confused.
Welcome to Miss Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 mistakes that were left in the Twilight movies. Number 10, Alice's Scarf, The Twilight Saga, New Moon. In the second movie, Bella is reluctant to make a big deal out of her birthday. Of course, it's largely because her boyfriend is an immortal vampire and the thought of aging now freaks her out. But Alice is determined to celebrate. As she's giving Bella her gift and convincing her to accept an invite to the Cullen residence, something odd happens. Her scarf won't stop changing styles. It seems the scene was filmed during 2 separate instances, and somebody failed to make sure the accessory matched up between shots.
Happy birthday!
Number 9, Bella's blood pressure, Twilight. After Edward saves her from a potentially serious accident in the school parking lot, Bella gets checked out at the hospital. Naturally, this involves having her blood pressure taken. It's done quickly, and we clearly see the cuff get removed by the nurse. She even talks to Charlie with her arm visibly free right after. Yet in the following shots you can see that the machine is magically back on her arm, even though nobody is taking her blood pressure at this point. Then when Carlisle walks in, it has once again vanished.
Bella, you okay?
Number 8, Changing Positions, The Twilight Saga, New Moon. From the moment they step out of the elevator, everyone is on edge. As they walk down the seemingly never-ending hallway, Bella is on the right of the screen and Edward is on the left. Yet when they enter the room, Edward has suddenly teleported himself to the right side of the screen and Bella is now on the left. Sure, vampires move fast, but it seems pretty unlikely that they randomly decided to switch sides. Instead, somebody likely got their left and right confused, which led to this mix-up. Number 7, a self-cleaning Jeep, Twilight. As Bella and Edward pull up to the family baseball game, the Jeep that they are in is visibly dirty. It is a muddy field after all. Pretty soon, Laurent, Victoria and James show up and ruin the Cullens' good time. Edward realises that the latter vampire is a tracker who is now obsessed with hunting Bella. Needless to say, they have to move fast. As the couple rush off in the Jeep, it's still muddy, yet in the next scene as we see them speeding through even more dirt in the woods, it's suddenly spotless. Number 6, Moving Fingers, The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2. In the final film, Edward and Bella must convince Aro and the Volturi that Renesmee is not an immortal child. Luckily, Renesmee has the power to literally prove this to Aro. What's interesting is her hand placement on his face as she does so. When the shot's focal point is Aro, we see Renesmee's fingers clearly. She places them down on his cheek. Yet when the vantage point shifts to her face, her hand has moved. Then, as the shot switches back to the first angle, Renesmee's fingers are back where they originally were.
Magnifico.
Number 5, The Smudged Page, The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2. When Jasper and Alice unexpectedly take off, everyone is confused. The note she leaves on a torn-out book page is helpful, but it doesn't tell the whole story. The fact that she chose the title page from The Merchant of Venice is significant though, and Bella can sense that there's more going on. As she looks at the note again, it's in pristine condition, just as it was when they first found it. But when Bella grabs the novel it came from to investigate further, the page is suddenly stained.
They've left us.
Why?
Number 4, Spelling Apotamkin, Twilight. At this point in the first movie, Bella is determined to figure out who or what Edward really is. After she reads about the Cold One in her new book, she decides to start investigating online. She finds an article about the species also known as the Apotamkin, spelled without a second P, so she clicks on the link to read it. But on the webpage, the spelling of the word has suddenly changed. The article title reads Apotamkin, with the second P after the M.
It's very common. You can Google it.
Number 3, Victoria's Corpse, The Twilight Saga, Eclipse. To say that Victoria is not Edward and Bella's biggest fan is a pretty big understatement. Things really come to a head in the last part of the Twilight Saga Eclipse. As she and Edward fight each other, it's unclear who's going to win. But after Bella cuts herself to distract Victoria, things get a little easier and Edward ultimately kills her. Pay close attention to her eyes when he does. They're open, and stay that way as her head hits the snow. Yet the next time we see her, they're suddenly shut. Number 2, A Migrating Book, The Twilight Saga, New Moon. When Bella wakes up at the start of New Moon, the classic story of Romeo and Juliet is sitting neatly by her head. Yet it doesn't stay on her pillow when Charlie arrives bearing gifts to celebrate her birthday. There is a brief moment where the shot focuses on Bella's dad and she is off screen. At first we thought maybe she used that moment to quickly move the novel, but as the scene progresses, it resurfaces right next to Bella, just as suddenly as it had vanished.
Happy birthday.
It's really funny.
Number 1. Bella's oxygen tube. Twilight. After an intense confrontation with James in the ballet studio, Bella winds up in the hospital. As she begins to regain consciousness, the camera is zeroed in on her face. Her oxygen tube is placed so high on her face it's essentially brushing up against her eyelashes. What's worse, when the shot subsequently pans out, the nasal cannula has suddenly moved to the correct position, and this happens more than once throughout the scene. It's as though they placed Bella's oxygen tube higher up for dramatic effect during the close-ups.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
Oh, honey, I'm so sorry.